Risk taker, businessman, sports and entertainment promoter, and passionate about making Florida the best place to live, shop, work, and play. It's time for the Joe Mullins Radio Show.
Hello, Florida. This is Joe Mullins of the Live, Work, Shop, Play Show. And what a beautiful weekend we have here in the amazing state of Florida. The freedom, the ability to go out and enjoy the sunshine, the ability to be able to go out and have our loved ones go to parks, go to theme parks, go to shopping centers, and go all over these beautiful beaches we have without worry of violence, crime. Can you imagine living in LA right now with all that's going on? LA's been a hot pocket for a while now with so much stuff going on. We've had so much chaos, but it is the center hub for immigration, people coming into the country. Of course, when they come over that border, they go into California first. And California has seen its share of drama this year, wildfires, just riots. Now the latest attack against police officers and ICE with so many people. We're still seeing so much going on. Border security, deportation of illegals, and so much chaos inside our country with riots, with fighting, with protesting, and brick throwing, attacking police officers. One side saying that police officers should be liable when they defend themselves, and the other side saying that the protesters should be given the right to stay here and they have the right to throw a brick, but a police officer doesn't have a right to defend himself and shoot a bullet. And we should be able to create laws to hold police officers responsible. Our world seems like it's still gone to a crazy end and losing its mind. I've got today's guest with me, Simon Hinkinson. Simon, welcome to the show today.
I'm glad to be with you.
We got Simon Hinkinson with us with Heritage Foundation. Tell us a little bit about the Heritage Foundation and why border security and immigration is so important to you guys.
I'd be glad to. The Heritage Foundation in Washington, D.C., we call ourselves America's headquarters. We represent about 500,000 members all over the country. We are a nonprofit think tank, but we also have a lobbying arm called Heritage Action for America. We are, I believe, the largest conservative think tank in the world, not just the United States. And essentially, we represent common sense, conservative points of view on every aspect of domestic and foreign policy, including the border and immigration.
So, Simon, tell me some of the things that Heritage Foundation, like in the past, y'all have addressed and dealt with, a bit more about what your guys' view is and what you think that is going on here and what is the solution.
Well, I mean, generally speaking, we believe that the border should be enforced. We believe that the laws that Congress passed should be enforced by the executive branch, and that the president does not have the right to throw the rules out the window, and that states and cities don't have the right to ignore federal requests for help and to essentially set up their own law, just like South Carolina tried to do in April of 1861. That's just not the way our system works. We believe in legal immigration, but it should be controlled numerically. There should be rules, and people should respect those rules.
And I think both sides say that. The Democrats and Republicans all agree that we need to get a process to come in the country. It's sad when you get a person coming from another country and they're a doctor or an attorney or a nurse, and they're having to Uber drive to be able to survive, to live in the country. So many say that.
And unfortunately, for the last 4 years under President Biden, we had open borders. We did not respect the rules, whether it was deporting people in accordance with the law or detaining them if they crossed into the country illegally, which the law also required when the president decided to parole 1.5 million people with absolutely no real legal justification.
Yes, Simon, we have a lot of people talking about that we've gone from one extreme to another, that the Biden administration just kind of opened the gates, that there's no rules, no structure here. Everybody can come in. And it almost felt like if Trump wants this, then we're going to want that. And not really what's best for the country or best for the community. Now you got Trump in, and he's extreme about locking down everything, getting everybody out of here. And I've heard some different sides of it. I heard just lately, Chrissy Nome said, look, if you want to turn yourself in, you can go to this app, you can turn yourself in. We're going to deport you, but we'll give you the opportunity to come back. So it sounds like they are starting to not be as extreme, but what are your thoughts on this going from one movement, one direction of allowing it all in to now all of a sudden just slamming the door shut and throwing people out right and left? Do you think it's too much for our economy, too much for our communities to see such drastic change and it should have happened gradually? Or do you think this is the right direction?
Well, I mean, ideally, we wouldn't need to be so drastic now because we wouldn't have had the past 4 years of maybe 10 million people let into the country with pretty much no vetting. I mean, we have no idea who most of them are. They can give a fake name, a fake date of birth, and they don't have to supply any criminal record or any form of identification before they got released or paroled, which is kind of shocking when you think about it. So we've had a really large number of murders, of robberies, of serious crimes committed by people who were let in those last 10 years. So it's just like any other law. If you don't enforce the speed limits on a stretch of highway and people get used to driving 100 miles an hour, if all of a sudden you start arresting everybody going over 65, it's going to look like you're being drastic and it's going to look like you're overreacting, but all you're really doing is going back to enforcing the rules. And I think that's kind of what's happening now. They're not going to be able to arrest and deport all 25 million people who are here illegally. There are 1.4 million, I believe, people who have final deportation orders. So they've had every bit of due process they're entitled to. They've appealed, but they have an order from a judge saying you got to go home. So at the very least, those people ought to go, and that's going to take probably a couple of years.
Now, we've got a lot of protesting and chaos going on in like California and some of our other cities. They were planning the No Kings protests, which was really to protest the immigration. What are your thoughts about these people? And we had just a few weeks ago, we had a lady on, an immigration attorney, and she brought up a very good point. A lot of these illegals are not out there protesting. This is coming from a different angle. Most illegals that are here illegally aren't going in public and doing anything because they're scared to death they'll get protested. What is your thoughts on that? And do you think these people actually are paid, or do you think they're out there really doing the supporting, or do you think this is just more chaos by the far left?
There's a mix of people. We saw this with the BLM riots. We saw this back in 1968 with the Weather Underground and the Chicago riots. There are some hardcore political activists. There are people who genuinely and honestly don't believe there should be borders and there should be rules against immigration and that you shouldn't detain anybody. I mean, it's a political belief that people have. I don't agree with it, but they're entitled to have it. Then you've got some far left, the so-called Antifa and the black blocs and people who are politically either anarchist or Marxist far left, who are there to capitalize on this opportunity to break some windows and try to overthrow the Western capitalist hellhole that they think America is. And then you've got some people who are just opportunists. I mean, if you look back to the Rodney King riots or the BLM riots, there were an awful lot of sneakers stolen and an awful lot of clothing stores ransacked. And that obviously had nothing to do with the political question. It was just opportunists. So that, I think, is always the case when you have a big movement like this. You get a mix of the genuine, the sincere, the politically, far left or far right, and then you get the opportunist criminals.
It kind of makes you think when you say that immigration part, compare it to the past things, to compare it to January 6th, how they made a big deal about that going into the Capitol. Yet here we are assaulting federal employees, just like they were claiming happened that day. And it's okay now for that same side that was opposing it.
And you're totally right. I mean, it's so hypocritical. You got these guys who are just doing their job, right? They're federal agents and all these people out there just saying these ridiculous things about them being Gestapo, and they know nothing. I was in France for 3 years as consul general in Marseille, and just down the road from us was the building where the Gestapo tortured people and killed them. We don't do that. Maybe we might arrest somebody who busts into a meeting they weren't invited to until we figure out who they are. But the law still functions in this country, and these guys are just trying to carry out their duties.
Yeah, so true. That's so true. And that's why we've got to stay strong and we've got to be able to have a policy here. And until you can get something, you just got to operate this way. You brought up a very good point, the mix and some of the different riots and things that have occurred. When you're looking at this and you're seeing what's going on here, you see the vandalism, you see the rocks being thrown, you see the people reacting that way. You know, it just almost makes you think, okay, this is even a better reason because these are not law and order people. If these are illegals, if these are people that are in illegally following it, and they're putting everybody's life at risk. I almost feel like let's deport them if they're going to do something like that. But, you know, I posed a question in a few shows ago, and I said, if these people truly, if the Democrats truly feel like this should be done, why don't we go out and take a census? And anybody that thinks that we should allow illegals to come in the country, not vet them, not make sure they're safe, let's let them pay for that. Let's let them fund it. Let's let them have an additional amount of money they can pay on their taxes. And then let's put them in their houses to live with their kids and their children and their communities. Let's put them there. Don't make sanctuary cities out of places in Florida like we talked about Tampa, Jacksonville, Orlando. Don't make sanctuary cities like that. Put them in those places and they kind of go quiet. So we know that's not the solution. What do you think the solution is here?
Honestly, I think the solution is, for right now, we need to enforce the law. We need to send the message out that the United States is a nation of laws, that we have an asylum process. It's called the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program overseas. And then if you're here, you can claim asylum if you have a legitimate case. And then if your asylum case is approved, you can stay. But that really is a very small number. Most people are just here looking for a job. And when it comes to looking for a job, look, like every other country, like China, like India, like, Somalia, we take care of our own people first. We've got our own young people who can't get jobs coming out of college. We have 25% of men with just a high school education between 20 and 65 are out of the workforce right now because they're not being tempted in by decent enough wages and healthcare benefits and other benefits. And they're also able to live on kind of a different basket of welfare and other programs. And these programs are accessible to people who are here illegally. So we have to have rules that put Americans first, but are still very generous in letting in 1 million legal immigrants a year, as well as a certain number of refugees. We just have to reestablish that basic law and order that every other country on earth has. No country can accept people from all over the world just showing up anytime they want and dictating to them that they're going to enter their country and they're going to live there and they're going to get free education, free healthcare, free housing, and so on. It's just unsustainable.
I was talking to someone, Simon, you're bringing up a good point. Other countries don't do this and they don't allow it. I was talking to someone the other day and they said they went over to Dubai and over in the Middle East and they said, yeah, they make you take your crosses. You can't wear your crosses out publicly like that. And I said, wow. And yet we let people come to America and burn crosses and burn flags. Yet, could you imagine going over to a country, a Middle Eastern country or a country over in Europe, even Russia, and burning a flag in public and reacting that way and then looking at them when they come to you and say, I've got my right to do this? I know they say that's what's different about America, but not all different things are good. So what is your thoughts on that?
Well, look, personally, I'll remember in the 80s, you're probably old enough to remember when an artist, so-called, using, I think, government funding partially, he put a crucifix in a box of human urine, and he gave it a very unpleasant name. He called that art. And I remember, I may not be the most devout or good Christian on the planet, but I was just appalled as a Western Christian, member of this civilization that anybody was allowed to do that. But I also accepted that in our country, you can really push the limits of tolerance pretty far. You can burn our flag if you want to. I think it's disgusting, but you have that right. But as you say, if you went to Saudi Arabia and you tried to go, topless on their beach and you were a woman, good luck with that. If you were openly homosexual in Iran, good luck with that. There are all kinds of countries that are way more repressive than us. And I think if you went to Mexico, which is, by and large, relatively tolerant country, and you went into the middle of the square in Mexico City, burned their flag, and started walking around with American flags and telling them how to run their country, I don't think you'd be put up with very long.
It's so true. And when you think about this, we've gone to such an extreme that our country now has no law, no order, and you just can't live that way. I wish we could. I wish we could turn around and say, hey, everybody's going to do the right thing. But you got some bad characters out there. You got some bad people. And then when you open the border, the biggest argument is we we are getting the rest of the world's bad characters and bad people. They're coming over here and getting a fresh start to be able to rob, rape, and pillage. And that's just not safe. It's not right. And again, when you put a person, I've done it many times as an elected official, I turned around and told people in our community that were far left and coming in saying the government should pay for this or the government should allow this. And I said, okay, then why don't we create a special tax and it's optional? And whoever feels this way, they've got the right to pay that tax. They turn around and shut up and say, no, we all should have to pay it. And I go, no, we all shouldn't have to pay it because not all of us agree on this. And not all of us think this is accurate or right. So, it's such a crazy debate. And then you got areas like Orlando, you got areas like Tampa, Jacksonville that really have a lot of people from all over the world. They're working here. Their families are here. They're scared to death that they're going to get picked up and misconstrued as an illegal and detained and not get to see their family. You hear the media play in the family where the mama was taken away from the child and they're living here illegally. Well, it's against the law. You brought up the point. It's against the law. They're enforcing it. This is no different than if the mom was smoking crack in the house and they took the mom away. You're breaking a law. You're breaking a law. And do you feel like there's any end to this, or we will be able to get settled back down and get some structure put in? And what do you think are some of the key elements in structuring a new immigration policy should be?
Yeah, I think we are in a process which will take months, maybe years more of correction. We're correcting for the open borders and the over-tolerance of the last 4 years. I think at some point we're going to have a conversation about whether we're going to be able physically or we're going to have the resources to deport the entire population of people who are here illegally. I mean, I think that's, if I could snap my fingers and make it happen, I would. And as you say, look, it's not fun when, parents can't be around their kids, but every time you arrest an American adult for any crime, and that happens probably, every second, then they are taken to court, and obviously their children are not going to go to jail with them if they go to prison. Now, I believe they're still prioritizing the most dangerous cases and the people who have been here the shortest time with the least excuse. And they're not trying to go after the people who have the deepest roots, but theoretically, everybody is able to be deported, should be deported. But I think at some point, we're going to have that very difficult conversation about trade-offs. The president's already talked about certain industries that claim that they need certain workers. We do have a visa system to let people in under temporary work visas, but at the same time, as I said, we have an awful lot of Americans who are unemployed, and we can't rely on just importing cheap foreign labor forever. So these are the really complex questions that Congress is empowered to decide. And that's why we elect them, right? We elect them because they can spend all day battling together to figure out a deal to work out some kind of reform for immigration that at least keeps most of the people happy most of the time. And it's not up to us as individuals or state by state, town by town to make our own decisions.
Now, Simon, Heritage Foundation, tell us a little bit more about what you guys do and things you guys get involved in, and also tell our listeners how they can get involved and support y'all's organization as well.
Sure. heritage.org is our website. If you just Google Heritage Foundation, we are kind of fighting the good fight on every level, whether it be trying to fight this gender ideology that tells you that if a child thinks that they're in the wrong body, that you should chop parts off or give them drugs to pretend that they can change sex. We're trying to defend unborn life. We're trying to defend freedom of speech, which is being curtailed in colleges and universities. We're trying to make government accountable, to have it spend less money, to try to balance the budget one of these days. We want there to be abundant power and energy. And while in the long run, of course, we're for the least polluting power that's possible, in the short run, we need to be using the resources that we have. So across the board, whether it's domestic policy or foreign policy, we have a unified voice that speaks from a conservative, traditional, family-centered, American conservative tradition.
In a day and time like we're seeing now, so many people are turning around, running and saying, oh, I'm a Republican, I'm conservative. But when you look into them and you look into them real close, you see they are far from that. The far left doesn't care. They don't mind lying. They don't mind deceiving. And organizations like the Heritage Foundation keep those people accountable. They make sure that they're staying true to the word that they campaigned on, that they said, and turning around and alerting us and letting us know when this situation's happening. And that's what I've enjoyed the most about y'all. Do y'all have a thing where you rate congressmen and you rate elected officials, showing if they're in tune with what the values of our country is?
I think our Heritage Action for America is the part of the branch of the Heritage Foundation that's the political arm. So they actually advocate for particular bills. They advocate, trying to get members of Congress to vote for or against things. In the part that I work for, the foundation, we basically just put out advice. We say, look, here's what we think should be done. And, of course, anybody can pick it up. It could be Republicans, Democrats, or the Green Party. But we just say what we think are the best policy prescriptions.
Simon, I want to thank you for joining us. And please, again, let our listeners know where they can tune in and how they can get involved with the Heritage Foundation.
Sure. If you just go to heritage.org, or just Google Heritage Foundation, we've got a great website which lays out all of our experts and all of our policy ideas and articles in one site.
Simon, thank you for joining us today, and we appreciate all the information. And, when you talk about border security and you talk about immigration, the media is not giving the true story today. They want to make sure that what they do is put a story out there that is basically nothing more than clickbait. You'll respond, you'll react, you'll get upset, but it doesn't give you both parts of the story. Organizations like the Heritage Foundation comes out, lays out the facts, gives you some really good information so you know what's going on. That's why it's important to be involved and engaged with organizations like this. But you know what? They're not free. They don't operate without any expenses or without any liability. We need to support these organizations, and we need to support y'all, Simon. We appreciate what y'all do. We appreciate y'all getting in front of these congressmen, letting us know, and being a voice for us Americans. We really appreciate it a lot, and want to thank you for taking time to joining us this weekend.
Thanks so much, Joe. It's been great to be with you.
I look at what's going on in our country, the immigration stuff, the depression or the recession that we were in the last 4 years. And, I'm going to say both sides, just the chaos that we had, COVID, just all the crazy things we've incurred over the last 4 or 5 years. And I sit there and scratch my head sometimes and go, why would anyone want to come to this country? Why would you want to? The way the Jewish people have been persecuted as of late, and the riots and the protesting, the way people have been spoken to by others, the way our media reacts, the way our businesses are starting to treat American citizens secondary, and there's nobody standing behind them trying to enforce this and say, hey, guys, we're all here in one country together. This is what I don't get, and I really stay baffled. And when I travel over to Europe, they say the same thing. You guys don't understand. If your current president or your current one side fails, do you not realize your whole country will fall? And we were set up to be united. United we stand. And where are they today? If we're going to keep this country the greatest place, we've got to have organizations like the Heritage Foundation keeping our elected officials, our government, keeping track of them and making sure that they're accountable and transparent in the decisions they're making. Organizations like the Heritage Foundation are crucial for us to stay the greatest place to live, work, shop, and play. Have a great weekend.